and welcome to The League, exploring the League of Legends lore from A to Z. My name is Rebecca.
And I'm John.
And I'm Mark.
And today we get to talk about The Serpent's Embrace, Cassiopeia, who was released December 14th, 2010. She's an old lady.
Yeah.
She is an old lady.
An old snake lady.
She falls.
I watched the champion spotlight video for her because it showed up in my YouTube recommends.
Oh.
This shit
damn.
is ancient, man.
Did
It's
Freak
really-
recommend jungling her with Trinity Force?
I think he did. He said he tried and it didn't work. But this guy was igniting like red buff or some shit. I don't know. League was a different thing back in the day, man.
Jungle was a different thing back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what was a blast was him talking about like the runes and I go like 2190 masteries or what.
Oh my
whatever.
god.
If anyone remembers those numbers, yeah.
Do you remember like those dark days? Nico remembers. That's our cat. When the runes and masteries were separated. I know it wasn't that long ago, but it kind of was.
Yeah. And everyone had to take
It's
that
starting to become
one
a while
crit
ago.
rune so you could get 1% and win that level 1 1v1.
I like the time spent dead reduction runes.
Oh my god.
I like to run those with revive.
The extra gold quints.
Oh god, revive.
Gangplank quints. Bank plank. Oh man.
See, I never really learned the runes because I refused. There were too many, and I was like, I have my pre-made pages and that's it. Which is wild compared to how I play now. I don't have pre-made pages anymore because I'm that good.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean I frantically am trying to find a recommendation before the game starts.
op.gg. Whoever the fuck I'm playing.
Googling Malphite ARAM real quick so I can get some runes. Anyway, Cassiopeia doesn't have a lot going on for her, so we're rambling a little in the beginning. She has a bio and a short story on the universe page, and that's pretty much it. The short story is called The Shedding of the Skin, and then John dug up just some old-ass bullshit.
Oh, it's so good. Cassiopeia does fall solidly within that realm where she did get a champion judgment. So we've got some judgment info for her, some old bio info, some hella old Dominion cinematics. This is some good stuff, folks.
Yeah, she didn't really get hit with the update, huh? Cassiopeia.
No, she got left in the past, man.
Yeah, a lot of champions got some updated lore, and I guess she did in a way. You said she has some old lore, but
yeah, with
they
the
didn't
Shurima
really-
update, they changed her lore. Because the whole storyline between her and Sivir didn't exist before the Shuriman update. Her old curse, well, we'll get into her old curse, but it was from a different thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. All right, so who wants to kick us off with the bio?
I can do it. So Cass is she is born to the house of the Noxian royal house of Ducato. Did I say that right?
That's always how I pronounced it. Ducato.
Ducato.
Couteau.
Yeah. Which I think means like of the knife or something like that in French.
Oh.
Very on the nose with these guys. But that's a storied house that has echoed through the various iterations of League lore. I kind of forgot she was a member of them. But she's, I think, one of two daughters. They might have more. I think it's just her and Katarina, who's her sister.
This is when I learned that Cassiopeia and Katarina were sisters. I didn't even know that piece of lore.
Yeah. Man, talk about insignificant relationships. Anyway, so Cassiopeia is one of the two Ducato daughters. She is raised up kind of not solely, but very much under her mother, Soriana. Am I saying that right? Or where did I write this down? Something like that.
Yeah, in my head, I was alternating between Soriana and just straight up Serena. But I imagine if they wanted it to be Serena, they would have spelled it a different way. So I'm going to go with Soriana.
I like Soriana,
Sorana. So I would go with Sorana. I would think.
Get real country with it.
Ignoring the E
Soriana.
altogether.
Well, Sor.
How very Massachusetts of you.
Sor is S-O-R-E. No, if it were Massachusetts, it would be like Solshenania or...
Jesus.
An E-C-H-E-S-T that you're just ignoring in the middle of the name.
Shoranshina.
Yeah, that's how you say it. That's how you... Anyway, so raised up by her mother. Her father, whose name is not mentioned at all in the bio, but it is Marcus, by the way, in case anyone was curious. Yeah. Noxian general, had a bunch of success in the Shuriman campaigns, so he eventually moved his family out. They're like army brats. They got moved out to the city of Urzaris, which is a Noxian holding in northern Shurima. And she grows up under her mother, very close to her mother, and starts to notice that her mother has other hidden concerns beyond just the Noxian Empire. And eventually her mom almost dies from an assassination attempt. Someone poisoned her hairbrush, which is an interesting way to try and kill someone, I guess.
Weird.
Yeah.
I guess they wanted to keep the poison theme kind of going with her in whatever way they could, right?
I mean, it could have been her food. They poisoned her food.
No, it was the hairbrush.
Caustic hairbrush.
Okay.
Caustic comb. But I mean, they mentioned this, but it doesn't seem to impact that much. Eventually, her dad Marcus gets recalled to Noxus to prepare for the second Ionian invasion. So Cass stays behind with her mother. Katerina also goes back to Noxus with her dad. And this is where Cassiopeia kind of learns, or it's revealed to her, that her mother is a member of the Black Rose, which is a secret society in Noxus. Also something that has echoed across League's lore for fucking ever. So very storied. And they are looking to expand their influence in Shurima. So Cassiopeia kind of grows up. She is initiated into the Black Rose, and her initiation seems to be hunting down her mother's would-be assassins, which she does very effectively, efficiently, and very speedy. Sound like even Soriana was a little surprised at how good she was. And she is tasked, as a member of the Rose, to go start plundering tombs, start trying to find like secrets to the Ascension magic is kind of what they seem to be looking for, right?
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
That seemed to be the case, especially from like the quotes afterwards. That seemed right.
Yeah, which makes sense. This is where the Ascended and the Darken come from. Everyone probably knows about it now. Eventually, news comes from Noxus that Swain has overthrown the Noxian Emperor, Borum Darkwill, and the coup has been supported by the Ducato House, much to Soriana's chagrin. Yeah, she's not a fan of that. Because apparently the coup is a threat to the Black Rose and its members. Soriana tasks Cassiopeia with going out and I think this is where she actually got tasked with finding the Ascension secrets. Before, she was just plundering shit, just in general. I don't know.
Just grave robbing,
Yeah, she was just a grave digger.
That shit happens a ton in Shurima. It's like their number one profession.
Yeah.
And this is where we back when we hit Azir, that's what it was. Back when we hit Azir, we talked about the descent into the tomb and rise of Shurima cinematics, and that's where this happens. She backstabs Sivir. They find the Ascended Tomb, and she gets bit by a big snake stone guardian, and it starts to twist her body with its arcane toxins, turning her into a snake lady. And she goes back to Urzaris and kind of locks herself away under the Ducato residence in an unused crypt, and eventually kind of transforms into Cass as we know her, and finally leaves the tomb ready to start helping the Black Rose some more. Put her transformation to use in some way. And that's about it.
I definitely feel like it's weird that I feel like I did learn a lot about Cassiopeia, mostly because I know nothing about her except Snake Lady and what we learned through Azir's lore about her backstabbing Sivir, and that's how she got cursed. I never imagined her as like a human woman, but at the same time, I feel like I didn't learn all that much at all. It was weird.
Yeah. It's a bio. They tend to be kind of light on that sometimes. And this is definitely one of those that's very light on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that struck me with this was after reading this short story afterwards, there were things that either seemed like they were missing that were important from the bio, or just conflicts between the bio and the short story that I was kind of curious about.
Oh yeah.
I think I felt some of that too. So I'm curious what came up for you, because I wonder. I bet we'll see some of the same things, you and I, on that one. If that's your feeling about it.
The only thing I really felt like I was lacking is I was curious what Cassiopeia's mother thought, because they seem to have a very close relationship. We don't really get any of her mother's personality, which I would have liked. We just know that they're close. And I don't know, like, what does her mother think about her daughter coming back as a snake woman,
that would be the scene that I would want to see in a short story. Would be what happened when she showed up. What's the relationship like now? Because it's Katerina is just like whatever. They might as well not be related. But her mother is. That's obviously like you said, the super strong relationship, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to see that her sister has gone off and is really close with their father, and then kind of learning like, oh, my mom and dad are not on the same side, and I'm on my mom's side.
Yeah, and I think with an organization like the Black Rose, it seems like without obviously knowing too much about what they do, they're very opportunistic, and I would have loved to have seen like how they would take something so unexpected as like, oh, my daughter is half viper now. How can we use this?
Yeah, I would think if anything, her mom would be the one to convince her to come out of hiding in the first place, to kind of amp her up and be like, can be a really good thing. Borderline using her, but I don't really know. Yeah,
well, I would think that would be there's a lot of potential in that scene because, on the one hand, you've got someone who's suffered something very, that's a really shitty thing to have happen to you. And to see someone leveraging that relationship to kind of use them for their own ends, it would add a nice little tone of tragedy to Cassiopeia, right? And the way that relationship is affecting her,
Yeah.
Ironically enough, that was her dad's role in the old lore.
Interesting.
was pulling her out of that self-loathing and being like, you're a fucking Ducato. Get out there and do Ducato things.
I would have liked to have seen that with her mom a lot.
Yeah.
Cassiopeia was much lower on like the totem pole than I was expecting. Just kind of looking at her, I thought she was some kind of powerful myth. I was imagining Medusa, because it was a snake woman. So seeing her as being like this somewhat vulnerable daughter was really interesting, but it didn't lean into it enough for me. I would like for it to lean into that a lot more.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I thought also if you wanted to look at other ways to kind of give her more, I thought maybe introduce a relationship with Sivir instead of just her being her kind of guide. Something that would help make that it would help make that betrayal feel more impactful. It would help cement Cassiopeia as someone who is very good at, because they talk about her, there's like a single throwaway line about her, using people and discarding them, right? Also very opportunistic. And, someone who could get Sivir, from what I know about Sivir, get her guard down and get her to the point of trusting you would really highlight, oh, you're a really skilled manipulator and you're really effective at using people. Instead of, I think she just hired her as just a mercenary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it raises questions about like why would Sivir even trust her in the first place to even be in that position of getting stabbed in the back, right? It kind of just makes her look a little gullible, maybe. I don't know.
Kind of like in the same problems we had with Caitlyn, in that we're kind of being told that she's really good at these things, but then the stories aren't necessarily reflecting that.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
But I'm curious about what your beef is with the bio and the short stories combined, because the short story, the flavor story, whoever wants to dive into that, didn't give us all that much.
Yeah, so I'll touch on it a little bit just because there's not a ton to go over. The story basically follows Cassiopeia. She's decided she's going to go on a hunt. So she is basically tracking this soldier throughout the city, kind of horror movie style, taunting him, mocking him while he runs away, until eventually killing him. That's kind of the crux of the story.
Yeah.
So some interesting things about it is that she does specify that this soldier in particular she has had her eye on because he is a murderer and an abuser. So this is in this story she's kind of like a
Dexter?
Vigilante style. Yeah.
It's weird.
It was a little weird because like you mentioned in her bio, it does very specifically mention, like people are tools, but the way she kind of calls him out for his actions against these other people are very much like, I can't believe you would do something like this. What are these people to you? Just throw away nothings. I'll teach you. It's like, but that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's your thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was specifically using children as bait or child meat as bait.
So I will, and this could have been cleared away with a really quick line, like a lot of plot holes in stories that we get from the universe. I think maybe there are a lot of villains out there who specifically feel differently about children, and so I think that they could have specified that, yeah, she manipulates and fucks people up, but not fucking kids, dude. You know, like, it could have been, like, maybe because he's using children.
Yeah, and the barmaid thing, too, just, like, not even just kids, but just, like, helpless people or, like, people who can't protect themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, Sivir could have defended herself, you know. She just was too weak.
Because her back was turned.
But she was an adult. It was an adult back.
Another thing that they mention in this one, too, is... And I couldn't tell whether this was written in reference to some of her old lore or not. I assume not, because this whole thing takes place in Shurima, so I assume it was a kind of a package deal. But she mentions how she has a long history of manipulating people in Noxus, and how she could get generals to do anything she wanted, and she was pulling all of these strings behind the scenes. But it's also kind of implied that she was moved to Shurima before she even reached adulthood. Like, that's something that happens when she's in Shurima, and it seemed like while she was always kind of beautiful, like, a lot of the more manipulative things may have been learned from her mother, like, while she was here. So it seemed like that would have been interesting to know if that was the case. Like, if she had all this power behind the scenes, I would have loved to have known that in the bio.
Yeah, this is what I assumed you were talking about, because this struck me as very odd. And again, I had that same thought of, is this in reference to old lore? Did they... But like you said, it's in Shurima, so because the way the bio reads, I very much got the sense that, you know, her mom is the one who all of those things would describe, someone who is pulling all those strings and has all that power, and Cass is just a pawn to a degree, right? You know, she's just an asset, a right hand woman, as it were.
right talon. Woman.
That's funny, I didn't catch that. I did love how often they keep saying, like, Cassiopeia was beautiful and she was this and that, as if she can't still fucking get it. Like, she's still a fucking sexy snake lady.
The top half's good to go, man.
And her face is
well, I'm
the
half
same.
too if you're into that. Yeah, I think some of that is DNA from the old lore, where her whole shtick originally was that she was a manipulator, but like a seductress specifically is how she was. And I feel like when they retouched the lore, they wanted to try and, because that used to describe so many league champions that it started to get a little crowded. You know, like old Ari. I mean, Evelyn still, but that's fine.
There,
Elise, you know. You know what's funny is Elise and Evelyn are right next to each other, and they both do that shtick.
I'm excited to make fun of that.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that they would have reworked her then visually and made her like an actual horrible looking monster. I don't know. That would have been cool.
Sure.
Like a snake monster.
I think in general she's kind of hamstrung because she's just such a flat Gorgon, you know, Medusa. Like, that's just what she is. She runs into that problem that Alistar has, or, you know, he's just a fucking Minotaur. You know, she's just Medusa. She needs that sizzle, you know?
Yeah, I think I definitely think it would be improved if they just leaned, like, she's just a full-on fucking snake now. Like, she's not half snake, half woman. Maybe she could still talk in a way, but, you know, make her like Rek'Sai, but a snake.
Something like that, or have part human, the top half, like, going into, I don't know how you would do that
maybe like
exactly,
half her, like Two-Face.
Sure, yeah, Two-Face it. Just a line straight down the middle.
So, like,
She's
one
half
eye
snake,
or something managed to survive. Man, we're good at this. We're better. That'd be dope as hell if there's just, like, this, like, the Phantom of the Opera mask, but, like, that's the only part of her face that, like, survived the curse.
It's all scales and shit, yeah.
Interestingly, in the Descent to the Tomb cinematic, like, there is when she is bit by the snake, there is, if you freeze it, God, I think I actually have the timestamp here too.
Oh, do you really?
If you freeze it at 2:14, she does straight up have the Medusa head. Like, she's got her human face, and then her hair is just snakes. It's weird.
Maybe they wanted to slip that in there as like a homage a little bit. Because she's clearly inspired by Medusa.
Yeah.
So.
I will say last beef I have with this short story. So she, like the whole story, she mentioned she was excited to sink her talons into this soldier. Mm-hmm. She never fucking does it.
No.
She turns him to she doesn't get to sink her talons into anything.
No, she ults him.
She ults him and then breaks him with her tail.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Yes.
I got baited. It was the old bait and switch.
I was gonna say, I think her turning people to stone is so weird. It doesn't really line up with the aesthetic, except that, you know, she's a Medusa, so that's what she does. She turns. It works in the game, but when it comes to like her in a story, it's, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah. In general, I found the fight scenes to be such a stark contrast after Camille, who they really worked in like how she fights in the game and worked it in so well into a really good fight scene. And this one, she's fighting a lot with her tail, which I understand as a snake lady, she'd probably use her tail, but it didn't translate at all to like how she fights in game, which was fine. But then they had her ult, like to throw that in there, like, oh, it's like the game now, but she wasn't fighting.
She did spit some acid.
She
I'll give her that.
Spit some acid.
Yeah, she got a Q in. Or a W, I can't tell which, I assume.
But she
didn't flash.
She couldn't get those twin fangs in, though.
Yeah, how do you do... I was going to say, how do you even have the twin fangs when it comes to the reality, right? You can't, like... whatever.
Just shoot your teeth out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weak fight scene in comparison, for sure.
Yeah. Well, my last beef is... you know, she spends a good chunk of this, at least the start of it, really lamenting her current state, and, you know, like we talked about, lamenting this loss of position and power and influence. And then at the very end, when she ults the guy, she's got this big rush of, oh, I'm so powerful, I love this, which you can totally get from one to the other, but it just felt like such an immediate about face from, you know, I hate this to I love this, and I want to do this more. And it felt a little whiplashy, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I lied. I have one more beef.
Okay. So much beef today.
It was just this was actually a harder, I think, scene for me to visualize. Her stalking and getting places so fast. I think, like, in my head, she was moving way more like I would imagine somebody like an Evelyn to be moving, like slipping in shadows and almost seeming to like teleport from one place to another. Like, I had a very hard time envisioning how like her snake body was slithering over the rooftops with the speed that it was kind of being described.
And quietly, like, snakes can be quiet, but like in like the grass, like the meadow, like there's rocks everywhere. Does that hurt her snake body? I don't know how it works.
I don't know, but yeah, I had a hard time as I was trying to envision this stalking scene. Like, it was cool, like I liked the idea of it, but I had a hard time imagining, like, how is this snake body doing the things that are being described?
She's like Assassin's Creeding on the buildings somehow.
Yeah. Well, she like calls out, and it's like by the time he looked, she's on the other side of the courtyard or whatever. And it's like, that's not a lot of time, man. I know he's drunk, but still, goddamn. I thought this story would have been maybe more effective from the victim's perspective, or maybe have someone go down into the crypt, and, you know, you hear like the slithering of scales on stone, and just all, you know, see a glimpse of a big snake tail, kind of. You know,
that would have been cool.
Something to make it more horrific. I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, after we've complained about this story so much, the author is Rayla Hyde. Just because, to give the credit.
Just to give
it's not
credit.
terrible.
It's not like a bad story. It's just like not what I wanted, like in terms of wanting more for Cassiopeia.
Yeah, this would have been a great Evelyn story.
That too, yeah.
Sure. One thing I did like, if we're looking for positives, I like at the start when she's kind of looking out at the city and she's very disdainful, and it communicates it in a way that, you know, in the way she's thinking about the city and like smelling the stench of, thousands of people piled on top of each other in this city. You get the sense that she kind of hates it and kind of hates being there, but it doesn't just outright say, I hate being here, right?
Yeah.
So that was nice. I also found a credit for the bio, by the way, on the wiki, which we rarely get, but that was by Ian St. Martin.
Nice.
So
yeah, we're not being rude when we don't credit the bio. They're not listed.
yeah,
we really have to go out of our way to find the people most of the time. So those were kind of the only short stories. I know that she does come up in a lot of other people's stories, but obviously she shows up in Sivers because getting stabbed in the back is a big part of Sivers' bio.
Whatever, Siver.
Obviously shows up in Katarina just because she's the sister.
Do we want to talk about Noxus? I know we had kind of said we might
yeah,
talk about
yeah.
it here. Okay, because I think some of that helps paint some of the picture that Cassiopeia and the Black Rose exist in. So Black Rose is all over the place. We're not going to go too much into it because they've got their fingers in every pie imaginable, and it's a lot. There's a lot of other champions who are better to look at it with, but we can look at Noxus a little. I think in the, was it Alistar one? Maybe we talked a bit about their culture.
Yeah.
And we can get a little bit into their history. Now, it goes all the way back to the Darken Wars, actually. So after the fall of Shurima, after the fall of Azir, you got Darken ruling over different parts of Runeterra, including the Noxai territories. Eventually, that Darken is killed or sealed away in the way that they all kind of are. However, all of the Noxai territories then get taken over by another ruler, this evil sorcerer who eventually is known as the Dread Revenant, or the Iron Revenant, or Mordekaiser, as we all know him. And his seat of power is this massive thing called the Immortal Bastion. It's this giant citadel. You'll see it in a bunch of the Noxus art, and currently that's in the center of their capital. Now, eventually, Mordekaiser is overthrown by Noxai tribes, but it seems like they still fight because the Rune Wars actually start when two different Noxai tribes have runes and have a conflict and can't come to an agreement. So good job, Noxus. Way to keep it up. Now, eventually, they form fully at the end of the Rune Wars. Some single Noxai tribe probably finally took over shit. They build out Noxus Prime, which is the capital where the Immortal Bastion still is. And I think probably the leaders of those tribes become the noble families, like the Ducatos, like the Swains, ones that we'll see kind of mentioned throughout. And they start pacifying their surrounding territories. The first Demacian-Noxian conflict occurs. And this shit goes on for like a couple centuries, right? Till eventually you get to a guy called Borim Darkwill, who got mentioned in the bio. So he's the emperor a little while back. I don't know the timeline on this exactly. Obviously he was around when Cassiopeia was a little girl, or definitely in control when she was born. And talking about the Black Rose, early on in his rule, a young Jericho Swain exposes a secret cabal known as the Black Rose and has a bunch of their prominent conspirators executed. So that's interesting because the Black Rose is something that people know about, or at least it exists. It exists within the Noxian cultural consciousness to a degree, which I didn't realize. I thought they were completely underground, but I guess they've been exposed at one point.
Yeah, maybe people aren't aware that they're back in some way, or that they're as powerful.
Yeah, I think the reading that I get from looking at this is that when that exposure happened, the assumption is, oh, we found them and killed them. They're all dead.
Good job.
All dead. Good job, Swain. So Darkwill in control starts igniting all these military campaigns, kind of spreading the empire out way too thin. The Shuriman campaign is one of them, where Ducato gets all of his military acclaim and success. So does Swain, which I think is why Marcus or General Ducato ended up supporting him. I would imagine that if they both were successful in that campaign, maybe they were, wartime buddies. That type of thing is kind of my reading of it. Now, eventually, during the first Ionian invasion, Swain loses this big battle at the Placidium, which was like kind of the turning point. Gets ousted out of the military, and kind of is gone in shame for a bit till he comes back and does a one-night coup, executing Darkwill and deposing him and all that jazz, which is also, again, what we saw in the bio, right? So that's like the big turning point. And this is about 8 or so years ago, give or take. So just to help set a timeline for where things are at. Now, Swain's in control. He establishes the Triferics, which is something we might see pop up going on. It's so instead of having a single emperor, they now have a triumvirate type rulership. Think like Roman triumvirate, I guess, with him, Darius, and someone who is ostensibly a representative from the Noxian assassin guilds. They call them the Faceless. Oh. They're like purposefully anonymous. I don't know if that's someone else. It's up for debate. I guess we'll see. And Swain issues, there's a piece called The Proclamation of the Triferics, which is, if you're interested in Noxian history or anything like that, it's a good little piece to read. But it's essentially like written in universe as a crier reading out this proclamation after this happens. And Swain ends all the foreign wars. Anyone who doesn't support him has a week to drop their shit and get out of Noxus or they get killed. And this is, again, where Swain declares that Darkwill was being manipulated by a group who has existed since back to the Rune Wars, who's influenced a bunch of Noxian kings and champions. And he names them enemies of the state, but he doesn't actually name them by name, which is kind of weird. He doesn't say, the Black Rose is who I'm talking about. He talks about it in a kind of weird roundabout way. But again, kind of, I guess, so I don't know, back to that question, I don't know if people think this is the same group or if it's just some other group or if it's just rhetoric around, outing people who oppose him or whatever.
Maybe he actually suspected there were tons of groups like the Black Rose, but that he just didn't know about. And he's like, this will be a good catch-all. Maybe they'll all think it's about them.
That's not outside, that's not outside the realm of how Swain operates, I think. Except I think he also does know that it's the Black Rose because guy knows everything. He's a little omniscient. But interesting thing to note on this little proclamation, it talks about like within a year, all the meritocratic ideals of Noxus that we kind of talked about are like really reinforced. So like governorships are now not, they used to be inherited. Now they're not. Commissions to the military, that type of stuff. Slavery is made illegal on pain of death. So makes Azir look like a punk bitch.
I was gonna say,
right?
yeah, he did that real fucking easy, Azir.
Yeah, Swain shows up and is like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. And if you do it, you're gonna get fucking killed. And that's the end of it. What's next?
Oh, you oppose me? Fuck you. You're dead now.
Yeah, you got a week. Otherwise, you're dead. It really makes Azir look very indecisive compared to Swain's effectiveness, right?
Wow, Swain looks like a real hero compared to Azir.
Yeah, what can I say? I mean, Swain's interesting. I'll be interested to get to him, in a year or two. Trying to think if there's anything else relevant. They established the Triferian Legion. This is like the baddest motherfuckers on the block. These guys are a bunch of Rune Terror cards for Noxus, so you'll see them mentioned a ton. And the only other thing is that Marcus Ducato, according to Talon's lore, is currently missing. Oh. Now there's a quote from Swain that describes him as dead, but I think that's old canon. I think that's old lore where he had been killed, because it also mentions Katarina trying to kill Swain, and Katarina is actually, according to her lore, working for Swain and them. So, yeah, not a big spoiler, But yeah, so I'm pretty sure he's just missing, is what's going on with him. That's all. Just some quick rundowns of kind of what's happened and what the political landscape of Noxus is, because I think of all the other regions is where we see the most political intrigue and plots kind of develop, that type of stuff.
He and the real J4 are being held by the Black Rose as we speak.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see if they've carried any of that over. I don't know. Yeah. And then and for the Black Rose, one thing that did come up that I found is that their leader is often referred to as a quote unquote pale woman.
Could be anyone.
As a title. Could be anyone. Who the fuck knows who that is?
Certainly not somebody with pale in their name.
Is there someone with pale in their name?
LeBlanc.
Oh. She's pale in her name?
The white?
Or in her subtitle?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know what her subtitle was.
Oh, no, it's just French for the white.
Oh, you're talking about the... Oh.
Oh, I see.
See, they hit it.
The white. I see.
Yeah.
I never thought about that her name is just the White. Okay, LeBlanc.
I never did
Jesus.
All right. Whew. Okay. So we've got some outdated shit to talk about now.
Fuck yeah.
So in Cassiopeia's old bio, they kept the whole bit where she was cunning and beautiful. She used to always just kind of hang around foreign dignitaries and just pry information out of them. And after one particular instance, this was after the barbarian pacification campaign from Noxus, where they, went in to get rid of the barbarians in the Freljord. She was trying to get information from a Freljordian diplomat. He refused unless she swore an oath of secrecy upon a strange serpentine blade. So she did, and then as soon as she got back to Noxus, she's like, nah, Dad, you gotta hear all this shit I just got from this dude. And basically, as soon as she spilled the beans, she turned into a half-snake woman and murdered a group of nearby servants.
So I was about to say that I kind of like that, but then I realized, like, what a dumb curse. Like, you want to curse someone, so if they lie, they turn into a powerful being?
Yeah.
That's not a good curse. She should have turned into just, like, an actual, like, garden snake.
Right?
That
That
eats
would
berries.
have been cool as
Yeah,
hell.
that would have been good. Not a good champ, but it would have been a better curse.
The grass snake.
But yeah, so. But now she's half snake, so she can't serve in court anymore. So she decides to serve Noxus through the League of Legends on the fields of justice.
Oh, God.
Man.
Meta. Ooh.
And she's going to have to go through a champion judgment to do it. So the champion judgment, she makes it to the hall, and all of these, basically, they are forced to relive some sort of like moment from their past that says a lot about them, or just like something painful, and it's kind of like all in their head while people observe and judge them on how they handle the situation, but they don't realize it's in their head. To them, it's like real. So basically, Cassio is forced to relive the last memory she has of her father, which, as I mentioned, is kind of she's hiding away in her room after having been turned into a snake, and he's just like, get your shit together, get out there, do your thing, like you're a Ducato, act like it. And then he gives her an envelope, which is sealed with a black rose, and then leaves. Mm-hmm. And then the scene shifts to a soldier entering the room, at which point she knows her dad is dead. And the soldier's like, sorry, I know you told me to tail him, but I lost him. So, she finds out that he is now dead, having been on his way to meet someone from the Black Rose, and, strangles the messenger, and then the messenger turns into someone from the Institute of War, who's like, why do you want to join the League? And she's just like, because my dad's dead, and I know someone here knows something, so I'm going to get someone here to talk. And you're like, okay, you're in.
What a, like, cliched, like, I don't know, line they gave her there. Just kind of storyline. My parent has died.
Yeah.
I want to find the killer.
Yeah. Yeah, old lore was something else, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I love the function of judgments, as it's just like, here, let me just lay out everything about my character in a nice, no nuance, no development, just here's your judgment.
Yeah, it was really funny, and I feel like people aren't really judged very much. They're not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I want to see the judgments for the champions that don't make it into the league.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
all of the judgments
Right.
we see are ones that made it in, and some of them are real shitty. They're just like, I just want to murder people. Yeah, all right, you're in.
Proves.
Maybe that's what they're looking for, I guess, or were, because they don't exist anymore. But like us, if we went in, it's like, oh, I want to join the league. It's like, I don't know, man. Your judgment was you making chicken parmesan last night. This isn't for you, my dude.
Shit.
I want to be chicken parm man. That'll be my ult.
Chicken parmesan killed my father. One of you knows something. I was turned. God.
That's like the chef version of Vane.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I forgot that's essentially Vane's backstory.
The
Spoiler.
chicken parmesan thing?
Yes, specifically.
I don't know anything about Vane.
You will
Eventually.
soon, in like 2.5 years.
Soon to you.
Now, Cassiopeia is also in a handful of cinematics and a handful of alternate universes. So the first one, obviously we already talked about it, Descent into the Tomb. Won't go through that again. She's also in, this one is another not really counting one, but she's in the Return to the Stars cinematic, which is the TFT Galaxy's mid-set launch. Her Eternum skin is there just because it was part of the TFT set. It got its own little trailer.
I was wondering what... Yeah.
Yeah, nothing exciting in that one. But actual cinematics, she is in the Spirit Blossom cinematics, 2 of the ones from China specifically. She did not end up making it into the English ones, but she's in both of the Chinese ones. And they were just kind of animated as opposed to CG, but yeah, she makes an appearance.
Yeah, she's a big part of that whole event.
Yeah. When you say animated, do you mean like in-game, how they sometimes do with like skin trailers, or is it like actually drawn animation?
These they were kind of like both. They had like the in-game animations, but they also had some actual like drawn animations in between those two.
Did you romance her when you played the Spirit Blossom event?
I'm trying to remember who I romanced.
I romanced Thresh very quickly.
I did
by accident,
Teemo.
and then what?
What?
Okay, let's move on. We'll talk about that later. Do you want me to wear that Teemo hat? Or?
Just saying.
Never underestimate the power of the Scouts code, man.
Now, Cassiopeia is also in an actual cinematic, though it was not released. Now, I remember when this was being worked on, and we kind of got to see a little bit of it, and then we were also essentially told this is not getting released. And we were kind of bummed at the time, but it's available on YouTube. It has since leaked out. It is not the best work. I still think it's pretty cool. And it is the only cinematic where you actually get to see, like, in CG, Cassiopeia doing her thing. Like, she does get to use her ult, which is pretty cool. She gets to shatter people again, because that tail whip move is something that they clearly wanted to add to the game, but just didn't.
Can't make her melee. Yeah, I do remember seeing this.
That was a Dominion cinematic, by the way. You never actually mentioned the name of it, I don't think.
Oh, yes.
Sure,
that was a cinematic for the Dominion game mode, which...
I'm watching it now because I forgot to watch it.
Yeah, which, obviously doesn't exist anymore. But it used to be on the Crystal Scar, and they were like just releasing it. It was released probably... I want to say like a month or so after I started there.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Dominion. Fuck. I was going to say, if you go and look this up on YouTube, make sure to look for the one with fixed audio, because there's at least one version floating around where the audio's off by a half second or whatever. It's really jarring.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and just type in Dominion cinematic, it should be the first one that comes up.
Yeah. So this was not a fan-made cinematic, but...
Despite what you might
think. As much
think
as it looks like one.
Yeah, like I know it's not
it's
not in the Riot channel because they never officially released it, but it was actually an official one that just didn't get released.
This was a fucking riot because I had forgotten all about this, and then you mentioned it. And I was like, oh man, I fucking forgot all about this. It is fucking great to go back and watch the janky animation, like Aurelia ulting minions, shit that just doesn't make sense. It's fucking
Aurelia.
dope. Aurelia,
that old Aurelia ult
Yeah.
too, where she just shot blades out.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. That was her ult. I was trying to remember what it was.
It's supposed to be all cool, and it isn't in a lot of ways.
Oh, is that Lux?
She gets hit
Christ.
Oh man, the Lux Power Girl pose after she ults. That shit's great. The thing is though, like, it's funny that you talk about Cassiopeia ulting because the way they do it in the game in the trailer, whatever you want to call it, is really kind of weird because she catches Jarvan mid jump and her ult takes a long time and he starts getting slowly encased in stone, but he kind of stays in midair because gravity doesn't. Because they wanted the scene to work a certain way. And it's like, well, he's made of stone. He would just fall, right? It's like.
Sorry, Timo came. This is horrifying. He's like a little rat.
It's because I romanced him.
No, I hate it.
I was gonna say.
Oh my god, Malphite.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters
Malphite
in here.
It's so bad. Like, if you watch
Yeah.
animated cartoon porn, it's better than this that people make in, like, their basements.
We do get to see some fun. You get to see the old Swain ult too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he
I actually
literally
like his
turns into a crow.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it reminded me of it, and I thought I had forgotten that he used to do that.
Yeah,
it looks pretty
cool.
good, or at least it used to look pretty good in game anyway.
It's one of the better looking things in the cinematic, but
Yeah.
I feel like they did for the Cassiopeia ults. They just decided to do the same physics as League physics, where if you get frozen midair, you just stay midair. They're just staying on brand,
I appreciate it. Staying on brand, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. This was great.
Pose.
Yes. I love the fucking Let's pose.
Dominion was pretty fun. I only played it like a few times.
It's fast. It's fun. It's Dominion.
That was the old tagline.
I just said it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
That was one of the modes I wish I took advantage of more. That and Twisted Tree Line, because I didn't play either enough, I feel like. All right, John. Did you want to jump into the alternate universes?
Okay, she's in a handful of alternate universes. We talked a little bit about High Noon already, and she doesn't play a huge part in it. In the Man with the Grinning Shadow story, she's essentially a saloon girl. An interesting thing to note in this is that she does wear a veil at all times to avoid turning her patrons into stone, which seems to imply that she does not necessarily have control of her power here. She, again, has an even more Gorgon, like...
She's a Cyclops, like she can't help it.
Yeah, just like a straight up...
Huh.
Although her little lore blurb for that skin just says, enterprising creatures of the Old West often fall with more successful bandit clans, serving as nightmarish enforcers, unafraid of a little casual violence. Cassiopeia became infamous as one such outlaw, but following a bloody coup, now leads an enclave of her own, which seems a little different than her actual role in the story that we see, but maybe she's in disguise. Who knows? Maybe they just didn't talk to each other. She's also in the Eternum alternate universe. So this is set in a world where alien machines rule. Each champion is an indoctrinated mechanical being. And her little lore snippet for that one is, in a world overrun by alien machines, this one seems especially intrigued by your presence. Its lithe metal form slides towards you, begging for your attention. You take one look, and then the story cuts off.
Okay.
I forgot about the Eternum stuff.
Yeah, and it is... This one, the Eternum skin line is probably in the same universe as the Battlecast skin line, or at least it's implied as much in the Olaf versus Everything issue 2.
Oh, really? Interesting. Is it like the machines were created to fight the alien machines, like the Battlecasts versus Eternum, or are they working together?
It looks like they're working together, like kind of with Victor.
Weird, because I know Victor kind of made all of them in that. Or I thought he made all of them in that AU. But
maybe they're just uniting against Olaf in the way that superhero comics and villains unite against bigger villains.
Maybe, but yeah, I thought it was like to fight monsters. We made monsters type situation.
The last one she's in is Spirit Blossom. We talked a little bit about it, but her little blurb on that one said, rumored to have once been a beautiful princess, legend says Cassiopeia vanished into the mountains where her sister staged a coup, never to return. So great was her beauty, and so renowned her cunning, that a shrine was built to honor this spirit of temptation, until her story was accepted into popular folklore.
A lot of coups in her.
Yeah.
A lot of coups in her. Coups happening all around. You know, if everywhere you look there's a coup, maybe you're the coup.
Doesn't sound like a word anymore, huh?
The coup is you.
I coup, you coup, he, she, we coup.
Coology, the study of... Yeah.
A cornucopia.
Hey.
A coup.
Bless
Namatata. Anywho, so
Any coup.
All right.
We're all dads up here.
Last thing I had was just a few quotes that I wrote down of her. She doesn't have a lot of quotes, actually.
No.
Older champs.
Yeah, like they clearly added a few more when they redid her lore, but not like a lot. One of them, though, was, Azir, I intend to prove a powerful ally. So it's kind of clear that she wants to get on Azir's side, probably so that he can teach her the secrets of Ascension. But that was interesting.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I read that, but I guess I assumed it was old lore because it didn't seem to really make sense. I assumed she would just be kind of working for Noxus and the Black Rose, but maybe that's her charge is to go out and find Azir and worm her way in.
Yeah, it would make sense
that.
if they want to try to, because Azir's recently come back after Sivir's been killed, so it makes sense that the Black Rose want to get on his good side, I guess, or kind of work their way through there.
Yeah, especially if
spread that
they
influence.
don't have the support of Borum anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other three quotes are all mocking Sivir, which I fucking loved. It's just all dogging her.
You died like a bitch, Sivir.
Basically. Okay, so the first one is, oh, Sivir, all you ever needed was a sharp prodding.
Jesus.
No.
And then, apologies, Sivir. I dispose of tools that have exhausted their use. And then the last one, Sivir, back to die so soon.
Those are pretty good.
Right?
So, any last thoughts on Cassiopeia?
She's Snick.
She is Snick.
Yeah, she attack, she protect, but most importantly, she snake.
She's Snick.
Yeah, I don't have much.
Yeah. As always, potential.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I will say I think her and Cho'Gath and Corki, our next ones, are gonna all kind of be like this. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think they're much older champions who Riot might have some trouble figuring out where to put them in the big scheme of things. Like,
yeah.
Cass is kind of stuck stuck in Shurima, kind of just doing not a lot. Her doing stuff with Azir would be the most interesting thing she could do, I think.
My guess is we're actually at some point whenever they do the big Void event, because you know it's gonna happen at some point. My guess is they'll go and redo a bunch of the lore for like all of the Void champions to add a bit more, but they're probably avoiding doing it until they know what direction they want to take until they know what direction they kind of want to take all that.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to revisit some people when that's all redone, but
That's fine.
Don't worry, it'll take them like 5 years to do it.
We'll be done with the pot. We'll have to bring it back. It'll have been over for years. But that's it. I was going to say we have done Cassiopeia. That sounded bad. But we have done Cassiopeia, the snake.
we have concluded.
We have concluded.
Nice.
It wasn't.
confessional was really good, honey. It was so funny. I was laughing on the inside. Didn't you see it in my eyes? No?
Don't look in her eyes. They'll turn to stone.
But thank you so much for listening. If you could, review the podcast, so, wherever you listen to it, that'd be helpful. And join us next week when we'll be talking about the Terror of the Void, Cho'Gath.